Hey guys, this is Ian Russell, head coach of Reno 1868, and you're listening to Steal Some Time.
Welcome on into Steele Sometime. Kelsey Steele, Scott Stewart, Matt Calvo on the mic. September 1st is here, you guys. It's fall. How do you feel?
Like I'm falling, like I'm in free fall, honestly, at this point, I feel like week to week, I got this giant dynamic of like last week I was just flying. We're halfway through the season. This week I'm just like, man alive. It just hits me, I don't want to go full Green Day because we'll see enough of it this month, but literally just up when it's over,
There is no fall. There is no fall in Florida, Kelsey. It's summer too.
Yeah.
That's why I'm upset. All I want to wear is an oversized sweater right now. Like, I've had 6 months of brutal heat. I'm over it. As you can tell, I'm wearing a sweatshirt right now because, like, mentally I'm trying to tell myself that it's time.
It's only like 90 out, so I feel you there. Trust me. Wow.
Whatever. Fall is here. We're through week 10 of play. Ton to talk about on the show today. Before we get into it, I think one of the things I wanted to bring up before we got into week 10 was how a lot of these leagues and sports were kind of go back to normal. Like, there are so many things I think that happen between just the fans being in the stands and sponsorship activations, things like that happen during a live sporting event that leagues and organizations are having to pivot. And so obviously, Scott, you're aware I'm a massive tennis fan. So US Open's back up and running this week. And one thing that I noticed that was so interesting yesterday when I was watching the matches is that they have pivoted in a really cool way. So for those of you who watch tennis, obviously you're aware that the winner of the match played at Arthur Ashe Stadium will hit signed autographed balls into stands where normally there's fans who are like fighting for the balls, Obviously, that's not a scenario this year. So what's really cool that the US Open is doing is they partnered with Emirates, who's a airline sponsor, and they've got these banners all across the stands and seats and stuff. And so if a player hits he's got 3 balls. So if they hit any of those 3 balls on one of the big banners, then they have $1,000 going to the USTA Foundation, which is the Rally to Rebuild initiative, which is really cool because it raises money for the National Junior Tennis and Learning Network, which is just like a bunch of nonprofit organizations that are just trying to build tennis and academic services to like underprivileged youth and stuff. So really cool way, I feel like, to kind of keep that tradition of still being able to throw or I should hit the ball into the stands, but a way to get some revenue out of there and a good charity aspect side of things. But one caveat on top of that is they are also playing the fan cheering noise in this like empty stadium. Empty stadium, you have like Novak Djokovic hitting his ball into the stands with all these fake people in the stands. But I saw that yesterday and I was like, that is ingenuity, like that's like truly rolling with the punches.
Yeah, I love that. I thought you were going to tell me that they had like the fans on the Zoom screen like NBA, and if one of the screens that fan was going to like get a ball shipped to them or something like that. Your idea and their idea is much better, much more beneficial. I'm over here being selfish, like hit my screen, like break the screen. I'll take one of those signed balls, but yeah.
Oh, I'm so into that also. Like, they should also adapt that.
I think it'd be cool, right? Like I thought that's where you were going. Like I would love to just sit there and like put my hands up, and if they hit me, like obviously they just like get your information after that and then ship you out a ball. But charity, clearly much more important, especially.
Well, it's like interesting too with tennis right now because it's such a different sport. Like NBA games, soccer games, it's loud the entire time. Tennis, there's so many instances where even the chair umpires like, you need to shut up. Like you need to let this guy serve. So it's interesting watching a tennis match now and seeing how silent it is for the entire time. Like we'll have like a 16 ball rally happen and an insane winner will go across and it's just like 40 love. I'm like, There's no cheering. This is so weird.
It takes some of the energy out of it. They need to pump in the Wii tennis crowd.
Yes. Yes.
That's where we're going nowadays. If that's the future of this sport, I'm tuning in real quick. Take my money.
I love that. So yeah, I thought that was super great and kind of goes along with a lot of the stories we've talked about with leagues trying to adapt. And it's honestly just a good feel-good story. So I felt like it would be a really great transition into our feel-good story of the week. And listen, I know I told you straight up that I'm going to do my best to not make these animal-focused and dog-focused stories. I changed it up last week, so let me have this one moment this week. So I need to introduce you guys to this beautiful golden retriever named Kareth. So she's a certified crisis response therapy dog, and she's offering comfort and support to firefighters in California right now who are fighting the California fires, which are just, treacherous out there. So every day she meets firefighters at their wildfire base camp in Marin County. And these firefighters, have just been working tirelessly to cover the 2,500 acre, I think that one said Woodford wildfire. So more than 200 firefighters on the scene. Kara's job is just to provide some love and relief for these firefighters, and she actually waits for them when they return from their calls out to fighting the fires. And when they return, she just makes them feel calm and just provides the ultimate therapy. And I may or may not have found her account on Instagram today when I was prepping this story, and it is a total melt your heart story. And I obviously love golden retrievers, as I've been very vocal in this, but I just thought that was such a heartwarming story.
So did you turn post notifications on as soon as you followed? Come on now. Come on. Be real with the audience.
I sent it to 4 different people. I followed the account and may or may not have made it one of my close friends.
Hey, listen, good news is always worth spreading. I'm right there with you. That's great.
On that note, let's get into week 10, shall we? Because we've got a lot to talk about. We just made it through double digits, so we're heading into week 11 now. But week 10 play was an interesting one, and it was one that had a lot of headlines as well. And with the conclusion of week 10, we can also say goodbye to 2 undefeated runs, because the Tampa Bay Rowdies and Orange County FC recorded their first losses this week, which means San Antonio FC, they are the lone wolf in this race. They're the only undefeated team left in the USL Championship. So I know that it's been a long time coming for San Antonio. I feel like this is a club that's so well run. There's no question that they are in every facet one of the most well-run clubs we have in the league. But I feel like there's been so many circumstances and scenarios here in the last few years where we've been waiting for San Antonio to kind of just turn it, and one thing after another. And it's just they're always either so close to being a massive threat, or it's just kind of a wash for them. So I feel like this is really a pivotal moment for this club.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just our luck that we go and talk to OC's Cami Palmer. I feel this happens literally every time that we do and talk and bring somebody up, and I feel for them. So I apologize to OC. I don't apologize to the Tampa Bay Rowdies in any way, shape, or form. I've been purposely avoiding that subject for a long time, trying to preserve what has been a good run for them. It's over. That's fine. They'll move on. They'll be good. But yeah, Antonio. I mean, yeah, I don't have any mercy left on that. San Antonio, though, and it's RGV, and they haven't had nearly the season that they want to have either. But San Antonio continues to just come out and establish themselves from the outset, really all the way through. And I think they really only, in my mind, had one lucky result of that last minute equalizer against Bold FC. But other than that, they've just been very dominant, and not dominant in every single time out. They just seem like they're going to take the cake. More just consistent. And they've been a team that has seeked the advantage every single time from the opening whistle. And even though you get cases like the Bold game where it does go down to the wire, they just always seem there's just something about them this year. And I don't know if it's head coach Alan Marcina. I don't know if it's the personnel that they have, but it just feels like there is some sort of X factor that exist within the organization that has propelled them to this point. They've got to be one of the front runners now, not just because they're unbeaten, but just because they've shown the resilience that you need to just be a high level, consistent side.
I was going to ask you about that because we saw it this past week with Reno, and Ian Russell was very vocal before their meeting with Phoenix and was saying, I don't care about the unbeaten records. I still think Phoenix is the best team in the league. That being said, obviously San Antonio is the only undefeated team left in the league. How do you think that falls in the realm of the top contenders for a title? Do you think that has like a really significant play when you talk about that?
I think if nothing else, Phoenix's advantage is that the target on their back is a little bit smaller, certainly than it was last year. They went on that crazy unbeaten run, and I just feel like Phoenix is still, in my mind, I will agree with head coach Ian Russell that Phoenix is still the best team in the league, and they are still going to be the biggest threat come October. But right now for San Antonio, listen, the tide is kind of low right now, and with that, you're getting results. But that target on your back grows bigger and bigger each week. What we've seen is that they've been able to respond to that consistently. Right. I'm still going to take Phoenix as my front runner, and I'm going to take that until I'm proven wrong. Hopefully not again, but maybe again. And to San Antonio, it's like, hey, we just got to find a way to keep this momentum going, keep getting results, keep making sure. You lose the unbeaten, though, and it almost takes a little bit of that pressure off. It's more just a question of, does San Antonio feel like they're going to thrive under the microscope, or do they need to eventually do exactly what we talked about last year with Phoenix, lose at the right time to be able to still build yourself back up for a good postseason run?
While we have Phoenix in the conversation at this moment, I have to bring this up to you because it was something I was thinking about yesterday when I was putting together Hat Trick. I feel like Phoenix is the biggest team that has ever had a mark on their backs for never winning a championship. Like you have to think about how many clubs sought after Phoenix Rising, and it is constant on that club. And they had that insane run last year. Yeah, they won the regular season title, but I'm talking about a club that is always the target, but who's never actually won a title. And I started thinking about it. I was like, do you think at this point they have a bigger target on their backs than FC Cincinnati did back in 2018?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Cincinnati would be the only comparison, right? And in a little bit different comparisons, right? They're certainly not apples to apples inherently, maybe like red apple to green apple. But I think that yeah, thanks. I think that it's one of those things where it's with Phoenix, and this is where they match Cincinnati entirely, is it's the internal expectation, right? Phoenix knows more than anybody else in the entire country who they are, who they want to be, and how they need to, what they need to do to get to that point. I feel because their internal targets are higher than really anybody else's external expectations of them, they're the ones who put the pressure on themselves to go in and week out. And, to be a fly on the wall in that locker room at Reno on Saturday night, just to hear what Coach Rick Shantz had to say, to hear what the players had to say. They seem like a squad that as soon as there's a point, even a point dropped, the inquest is beginning as soon as that final whistle goes. They seem like a group that does not wait to look for solutions, does not wait to give anybody an inch of not just respect, right? Because they are a very respectful side, but give them an inch of advantage, right? They want to solve their own problems before anybody else can take an outside look in. So I feel yes, absolutely, the target is probably just as big as it ever was on Cincinnati. But again, for slightly different reasons. I feel Phoenix's expectation really since they've become who they have been in the modern era has been, we need to win a USL championship final. They came very close in 2018, but that was when Louisville, who was, I think, boy, I really wish we weren't robbed of that 2018 Cincinnati-Louisville playoff matchup, because I think that would have been one of the all-timers.
Yep.
For the team. But, they came close in 2018. It was certainly they had the cast to get it done. Last year, they had the cast to get it done. This year, you'd make the same argument. I think the target will always be big on Phoenix's back, maybe slightly smaller this year due to just some of their recent results. But it's always going to be big because of their own doing, not because of necessarily what anybody else has to say or think about them.
And I think also when you look at Phoenix, you're talking about expectations year after year.
Yes.
You know, FC Cincinnati had that target for a year, and then that was it. So it's a lot of pressure, and it's one that just has kind of followed them year after year. And I will say, I think Phoenix's biggest critic is themselves.
Yes.
And I think, you know, everything set aside, they will always be the ones who are going to be hardest on themselves. And in week 10, I'm sure that was no different, because obviously they dropped 3 points to Reno, and Ian Russell's going to come on in a little bit and talk to us about that meeting in week 10 and where he sees his side moving into it. But before we get there, we've got to go into a few buy or sells for you this week, Scott, because we've got a few good ones. So let's get right to it. Birmingham Legion FC is 3-0-2 in their last 5 games. Okay. So the club had a massive 4-1 win over Charlotte this week, including that number 1 appearance on SportsCenter's top 10, thanks to Bruno Lappa and Nico Brett. That marks the 6th goal of the season for Nico Brett, in a 5-way tie now for 4th place in the league in goals scored. And listen, you and I can go back to February when we had our preview show, and we can both attest that we thought Nico Brett was probably the biggest and most talked about acquisition in that offseason. He had the ability to make that Birmingham side a massive, massive threat. So at this point in the season, in your opinion, are you going to buy or sell Birmingham's addition of Nico Brett in 2020?
Yeah, this is an easy buy for me. Not just because of what we talked about in February, but I feel like if the goals weren't distributed as much as they are across Legion's front line, he would be in the running for a Golden Boot, if not necessarily like our front runner. So I think Nico Brett's been an incredible addition for them. We kind of talked about whether or not Birmingham is an offensive powerhouse last week, and I still feel like even though they hung 4 on Charlotte, with all due respect to Charlotte, I just don't know if that necessarily like really puts the icing on the cake for me. But I certainly think that like Nico Brett, from an addition standpoint, there is nobody who has made that impact. There's still plenty of time in the season for me to feel differently about other teams and other additions, Rufat Dadashov being one of them for Phoenix. Mm-hmm. But I feel like just right now, the way that Birmingham is performing, the way that Nico Brett, it's more just the for me, it's the seamless transition, right? Like Nico Brett didn't need time to get off and running. He didn't need time to like figure out how to work into that offense, right? He just found his way in. He was able to work with Bruno Lappa. He was able to work with Brian Wright. And now we see Birmingham head and shoulders above the rest of Group G, but very, very soon, maybe head and shoulders above the rest of the Eastern Conference as well. So, yeah, I'm going to buy Nico for sure.
I love that one. No argument there, and a lot of valid points there, Stu. Moving right along, number 2. There's another team who's having a heck of an August, and that's the Charleston Battery. They're riding a 4-game winning streak, and as we touched on earlier, handed the Rowdies their first L of the season. So they're feeling good, and now at 20 points, the club is actually within sight of securing their 10th playoff appearance in a row, which is just historic. It's incredible. But here's the thing. I don't think it's a question, Scott, that they make it at this point to number 10. Like, I think that's a given, especially with the way that we're seeing this club play right now. So that's too easy of a question for you. I'm not going to toss that one over. Here's my actual question. Are you going to buy or sell Charleston Battery as a serious playoff contender in 2020? We know they can get there, but can they make a run?
No, I'm going to sell. I'll sell that one. Yeah, I know.
Sarah Cardamone is crying right now.
Yeah, I know, and that's okay. Sarah and I can talk offline on what makes sense and why I feel this way. But listen, like I love Charleston. I think that they've got an incredible group. I think they're talented. They're extremely well balanced, which again is one thing that we love to talk about. Like even Birmingham being a well balanced side, that's good. That's fantastic. That's going to do you well getting you into October. Again, like even last year, and I know that this is totally different, right? But Charleston just feels like, again, just a pure grit and grind organization. And when it comes down to playoff soccer, I mentioned this last week, that's a useful tactic, and that may end up advancing you. But I just don't personally buy into the holistic sense of the Charleston Battery's firepower. I don't know that they're going to be able to show up in Indianapolis, in Louisville, and do something that's fantastic. I don't know if they're going to be able to take on, like, Birmingham and Charleston would be a great game to see. Charleston, Pittsburgh would be a great game to see. I just don't know that I take that to heart right now. Now, if Charleston somehow ends up facing like Charlotte in the first round and they get past them, and then they look at playing like maybe a downtrodden side, not necessarily like a Rowdies, but even looking at like someone like Hartford, where they might be able to just take the consistency of playoff soccer versus Hartford, which would be their first ever appearance in the playoffs. They may be able to work themselves in, but just looking at the picture right now, I'm selling Charleston as like a serious heavy playoff contender.
So you think the issue with them is that when it comes to that scenario after they do make the playoffs, is it a matter of just them not being able to show up in those big moments?
I just don't know if I like buy into – I look at someone like Indy and it's like, okay, they may live or die by Tyler Pasher. You know, you look at someone like Louisville, okay, they may live or die by the goals of someone like Cameron Lancaster or Luke Spencer. But their surrounding cast, like they are just much deeper. In Charleston, you've got Mauro Cicero, who's been great. You've got Zico Lewis, who has been great. But I just don't think that they're going to be – like I'll just be blunt – I just don't think that they're going to be able to carry that team all the way into a championship final in November. And I feel strongly about that, right? Like, this is one of those situations where I'm really like putting my neck on the line a little bit, because if they do it, that's fantastic. But in my opinion, I just don't buy into them having what they need to make a deep, deep run in what is already proving to be a weird Eastern Conference season. But you've got just some heavier hitters who are always going to be well above, from an expectation standpoint, where they need to be to get the job done. Charleston's just not there for me right now.
Okay, so first one's easy buy, second one's easy sell for you. Number 3 here, I'm interested to see. I think you could go either way. So it seems like a big question for us this season is who exactly is San Diego Loyal? Because it is September and we're not really sure. I mean, so much hype surrounded this club for obvious reasons. The addition of Irvin Parra, Charlie Adams, Ben Spencer. I mean, just to name a few, they had some serious expectations, and that's not even talking about the guys that they had on the back line, you know? So I was out there in March and I was truly so impressed by this club. Like watching them train, I felt like they were definitely going to be a heavy hitter. I mean, here we are. We're heading into week 11. San Diego Loyal has just 7 goals this entire season. I mean, you've got guys like Tyler Pasher, Junior Flemings, who are way past that just themselves. So they're tied for 3rd from the bottom in the league in total goals scored. So my question for you, Scott, you going to buy or sell the ability for San Diego to double that total by the final week of the regular season?
Can I look at who they have left? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fair. I'll allow it.
Just before I get into like too far down the road here. Okay.
Yeah, they've got Vegas this week again.
Vegas, Galaxy 2, OC, who's staunch defensively. Phoenix, another meeting with Phoenix, another LA, another Phoenix. I don't like this.
Let's be fair too, Scott. I'm not asking for total points.
Yeah.
Just total goals scored.
I'm going to sell. I think you're right. This is a tough one for me. And I think the addition of Miguel Berry is going to help for sure. And I do think that they have the problem is like they just don't have an out and out number 9, right? Like Francis Atuahene scored, I think, twice in their opening like 2 or 3 games. And we thought like, okay, maybe this guy could do it for them. But here we are 10 games later, he's still sitting as their top scorer with 2 goals. So I just don't know. And I don't think that we've seen nearly enough from them. Yeah, I don't think so. I'm going to sell this one. They've got some tough opponents left. I still think that they could find some goals. And obviously like Vegas just showed that even though they can put up 3, they might leak 4. So there may be some hope. There may be some hope for San Diego if they get like one really good game, but like we just haven't seen nearly enough offensive output. I'm looking at their form recently. They've scored 1 goal in their last 5 games. Like,
oh my God. See, when you put it like that, it's just
what in this pattern is supposed to tell me that 1 goal in their last 5 games will equal that they score 7 over the course of their final 6? Right. You know, I'm not here for it. It wouldn't surprise me if they did, only because of the ability. Like if you put up 2 in 1 game, obviously you're a lot closer to 7. 7's not a high number that they need to reach. But I'm going to sell this right now just based on what I'm looking at from a form standpoint, a personnel standpoint. It's going to be tough for them to make the playoffs, so I don't think goals scored is necessarily their top marker right now, but they need to get going, and 1 goal in the last 5 games is not how you do that.
If they're wanting to get to October and make a deep run, I mean, they've got to get the ball in the back of the net. There's no questions asked there. But Scott, I'll tell you that one team that's not having an issue scoring goals right now is Reno. And we're going to take a quick break. But when we return, Reno's head coach, Ian Russell, he's going to drop by the pod. And obviously a massive week and current run Reno is on. So the man at the helm, he's going to give us some insight into this club. And let me tell you, he doesn't hold back. This one is really good, so stick around, guys. Ian Russell is going to join us when Steele Some Time returns. Reno 1868 FC head coach Ian Russell joins us now. Coach, thanks for making time to chat with us today.
Yeah, definitely. Good to be here.
We are so excited to have you on the show this weekend. Obviously, it's been a heck of a season so far for Reno here in 2020. Currently sitting atop of Group A, 21 points. What are your initial thoughts in this group style play this season?
Yeah, it's definitely different. We're going to play Sacramento 4 times, Tacoma and Seattle. So it's going to get, I'm sure, pretty chirpy in those last 2 games with each team. The scouting reports are pretty easy. You get to play them so much that you kind of know everybody's tendencies. But it's really nice to get out of the group play. We played San Diego, Las Vegas, and Phoenix now. So it's good to play somebody that you haven't already played. So that's been nice.
Speaking of that, you had the chance to meet with Phoenix here in Week 10, and you told our own Nicholas Murray that despite not being one of the unbeaten teams in 2020, you saw Phoenix as the top team in the league, without a doubt. So besides the obvious, the strength and high-quality players there with Phoenix, what do you think makes that club so difficult to beat?
Yeah, I think it's just you talk about the strength of their players. I just think they're so deep. They've been bringing in like Sante Mori as a substitute. Like he's one of the top wingers in the league. It seems like they can really intermix their squad, and there's really no drop off. Sometimes it even gets better. I think they're well coached. I think Rick's done a really good job there. And it's always going to be a team that's going to test you physically. They're always very physical, strong players, good footballers. And they've really, over the last 3 or 4 years, they've been excellent.
You went on to say that, and I quote, "We want to play against a top team to see where we are and to see what we need to do to get better," or to say that we're better than them. The guys have no fear. I know that much. We saw that, obviously, this weekend, right, sitting where we are now, a 2-1 win over Phoenix on Saturday night. That quote is so powerful in itself. Where do you feel like your club stands now?
I think the game was good. I thought it was one of the poorer halves that we've had, the first half, and to still be in competition with them after playing such a bad half, I was happy with that. I just think it shows the strength of our squad. Second half was a bit better. We scored a couple goals, should have had a third one, but they had a few chances as well. But overall, I thought, they have some really dynamic players that we handled pretty well.
Do you feel like you got the test that you needed from them going into that game?
I think so. I think we still need to be there. There's more tests to come. We need to continually progress. I think if you look at our first game back from quarantine, it was against Sac Republic. My opinion, was one of the worst games we played in 4 years. It was awful. Our next game was better, and I think every single game we've gotten better. Aside from this Phoenix game, I don't think we played particularly well in this game. We still won, but I think there's a lot more that we can do attacking wise next time we play them.
It's interesting you say that because I feel like, and I'll be the first one to say it, Reno doesn't get nearly enough credit for being a high goal scoring club. In the last 3 years, you're literally second in total goals scored with 223, 20 already this season. What is it about your club that they're able to just consistently execute year after year in that area?
Well, we've been really fortunate to bring in a lot of good goal scorers here. Dane Kelly, Corey Herzog, Foster Langsdorff, Danny Wasowski, who's now with LAFC. Antoine Hopino, when he was here, he played up front. He scored a bunch of goals. I might even be Brian Brown's another one that scored 19 goals here. We bring them in if someone's got a good track record of scoring goals, whether that's in college or professionally. We try to get them here because we think they can continue that. There's going to be times where I take a chance on some strikers that don't have a history, but that's a risk. I think goal scorers are, they're either you're a goal scorer or you're not. You're not just going to all of a sudden score 15, 20 goals when you're averaging 1 or 2 a season. So we try to find guys that are maybe had a couple down years where they didn't score as many the previous years, and we look for those guys to bring in and try to get them back to their scoring ways.
You mentioned Foster. He's had a goal in his last 3 games. Corey Hertzog's also right up there with 4 goals. I mean, you've got Bone, Francois, Rivas on the sheet as well. So in reality, your attack's really deep. Does it feel like you have the ability to rely on a lot of different guys?
I think so, yeah. I think that's what you're seeing out of our team this year. We're playing a different system than we have the last 3 years. We've always usually played more of a 4-4-2 diamond or a hybrid off that. This year we're playing more of a 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1. And the goals are definitely coming from different areas. We're getting a lot of chances from turnovers from the opposition. Just the way we're pressing defensively is helping a lot with that. So I think you're going to see goals coming from everywhere, which I like it. I like that. I don't want to just rely on Corey or Foster to each score 15 goals apiece. I'd rather have guys in 6s and 7s all over the field if we can.
Well, I think you've seen the teams that have been successful, especially in recent years past, are the clubs that have the ability to call on somebody at so many different times. I mean, we've talked a lot about Louisville City being one of those clubs, right. Phoenix Rising as well. I mean, it's got to provide another level for you when you want to pull somebody off the bench or, you want to pull somebody in on that set piece.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good point where, you've got to get your center backs scoring a couple goals every year off set pieces. Your outside backs need to chip in. If you can get your wingers to score 6s and 7s and then have your attacking mid, maybe your holding mid get a couple goals, then you're getting that 40, 50 goal range where that's going to get you a lot of wins.
You've gone on the record these last few weeks, and I've been very confident, very sure of this club, and your club keeps proving you right. What do you think this team's capable of in 2020?
I think, we have a good chance of obviously making the playoffs. I think we are on the way there. And I think we can do a lot of damage in the playoffs. I think this team, and I said that before, this is the hardest working team I've ever had. Everybody knows their role. Defensively, again, we've changed 100% change on how we've defended this year, which was, it was tough. I'm changed my whole playing style this year to look more like what the San Jose Earthquakes are doing with Matias Almeida. And that was a tough thing to do. We had so much success in the last 3 years. To kind of uproot everything I've been coaching to completely change was a big test for me. But I really enjoy kind of how we're playing right now. I think this system can do some serious damage.
Coach, you're not the only one who's enjoying watching Reno play right now. I think a lot of people can attest to that. Appreciate you hopping on the pod. Great to have you, and open invite anytime. After a Reno win, though.
Yeah,
right?
Only after a win for sure. Thanks, Kelsey.
Appreciate it, Coach. You take care.
All right, welcome back into Steele Sometime. Ian Russell, what a guy. One thing I really wish I would have followed up with Ian on that conversation is how truly difficult it is to completely change your system the way he talked about. I mean, to completely throw away everything that he has put together over the last few years and, what he's comfortable with. It's a very, very rare thing you see in sports in general, to see a coach completely change their system altogether. So I think that really speaks to how committed Ian is to making Reno successful.
100%. And I think you and I kind of talked about this a little bit before we hopped on today. Ian Russell is not only just one of our more down to earth, but he's like truly an extremely talented coach. I think it's lost on a lot of people that they were the 2 seed, the 3 seed last year. They were a high performing organization. They've clearly only gotten better this year, and to somehow go from that high to even higher in a season where we've had a pandemic and all these converging issues.
Yeah,
This is a testament to who they are as an organization, but what he's been able to do with that group of players.
Obviously appreciate Ian for coming on and shedding some insight into Reno, and honestly at this point only continue to expect big things from that club out west. And of course, at this time in the show, Scott, you and I always pick out a few of our favorite moments across social media this week, and I mean, you and I talked prior to the show. This one was an absolute no-brainer for us. It was a historic week for the USL Championship, and it honestly leagues across the country. In the midst of this fight for racial equality, the players in the championship actually got together and put together a powerful message themselves. So in nearly every match this weekend, the players stopped at the 7-minute mark, kneeled around the circle until the 8:46 mark, and then proceeded to resume play. But truly a really incredible and powerful display from our players in week 10. And Scott, I feel like what truly makes this so impactful is you're talking about an entire demonstration that was player-led and player-organized, which is not easy to do when you have 1,000+ players in a single league, but to also convey that message in an organized fashion in such a short period of time.
Yeah, 100%. And player-led, and the players deserve all the credit in the world for making this happen, for taking a stand, for leading. We talk about this every week, just how grateful we are to be a part of a league in which its players use their platforms and use their voices only for good, right? And we see it all across the league too, right? Like it's obvious that Hugh Roberts and Brandon Miller in Charlotte and Nazmi Al-Badawi in North Carolina, like we have many outspoken characters, outspoken for good. But I will also give the clubs a little bit of a shout out as well, because on Saturday I called and got a hold of nearly every PR director in the league, and there was not a single hint or question of whether or not this should be publicized, whether or not this should be talked about, whether or not this should be on social feeds. This was a categorical 100% yes all across the board. So it's a kudos to the clubs for playing the role that they played and releasing a lot of strong statements, but it's obviously much, much higher praise for the players for doing exactly what they felt responsible to do, which is stand up, again, for the good of human and social rights.
Again, while all that's being organized, you also have the USLBPA being created as well. So that's another massive step for the players in this league. And I mean, kudos to all of the guys who had a hand in organizing that organization in such a quick turnaround. And obviously you mentioned Hugh Roberts, who is one of those voices leading that charge of the USLBPA. I mean, Hugh has just been a huge voice for this league and this cause in 2020. So it's honestly hard to think of a better person to be at the forefront of this organization, Scott.
100%. And Hugh was kind enough and generous enough to lend us his voice you'll have to, from the pitch piece, I almost nearly forgot where we were talking about, but
don't do that to me.
I won't do that to you. But Hugh was kind enough to lend not just like his voice, but his emotion for what is obviously a very difficult subject to speak on from his point of view. And that was back when we were talking about Ahmaud Arbery. And yet here we stand September 1 with so many more names added to what is seemingly a growing list of people who are oppressed in this country, people who are experiencing prejudice. And again, I'm proud of Hugh, but I'm proud of the players in this league for taking an initiative, right? And this isn't like, I feel like it would be very easy for an outsider's perspective to see like, oh, well, I'm sure USLPR had something to do with it, or I'm sure that the league office had something to do with it. There is nothing in this movement that counts for us in any way, shape, or form. And
all we did was throw a retweet.
Yep. And that's what I feel like is the most poignant and important part of this process is this is player-led, this is player-driven, this is league-supported and fan-supported, but if we were not to do that, it would say a lot more about us than it would anything that the players had done this past week. So, yeah, a true testament to everybody involved.
Proud to be associated with this league, even if it's just in the smallest amount, truly. A lot to talk about from week 10. We covered just a small bit of it, but before we close today, we've got to preview week 11 just a little bit because we do have quite a few games coming up, a massive Wednesday slate again. Biggest one that jumps out to me, I think, in week 11 on Wednesday slate is Las Vegas and San Diego, which we just briefly talked about earlier. But you've got the bottom two teams in Group A. But here's the thing. You talk about the opportunity for San Diego to score goals. I think that they have a really good chance to do that here with Las Vegas because this would be their second win over that club. They haven't lost to Las Vegas yet this season, so I think it's a huge opportunity for them. And in reality, Scott, you're talking about a San Diego club that really is only a few points off from LA and Orange County. Granted, they do have 2 games in hand, but there is opportunity there for this club if they can turn it around.
It's just one of those, and I feel like we've talked about this and put a couple of these clubs in this position, but the clock continues to tick, right? So it's like we talked about this with Miami. We've talked about this with the likes of North Carolina. If you're going to do something that's going to see you still playing in mid-October, it needs to start right now. The exact same can be said about Wednesday night and San Diego Loyal. Obviously, going to Vegas, I feel like has just had a weird, just sort of a roller coaster of a season just in general. And that's beyond just Eric Winalda and the new coach, Frank Yallop. That's just like personnel up and down, results up and down, and I feel like they're just kind of unpredictable right now, but that doesn't necessarily serve San Diego well, that they're going into another Wednesday game where they're just kind of like, well, we know we need to win, but like it's kind of like trying to fight a tornado, right? It's like we don't really know what direction the wind's blowing right now, so we just need to be ready to respond the best way that we can. The other one for me that I want to do a quick shout out on is they're not in free fall, but Tulsa has found themselves, although with a game in hand, out of the playoff picture right now. And
how does that happen? How did we get here?
Again, and this feels like we were talking just a couple weeks ago, we were talking about Tulsa being one of the unbeaten teams and like, hey, we were so impressed with their brand of soccer and what they've done. It's RGV. So again, and I know RGV has had their struggles in what has been a 10-game winless season so far, but if Tulsa somehow doesn't find a way to get through with 3 points on Wednesday, I think you're starting to look at more and more questions. And this is coming from the guy who you labeled as the Tulsa lover just last month and everything that they had going on. There need to be questions asked of that game as well on Wednesday.
Well, I think they have a really big test following up with that on Saturday. It's not an easy week 11 for FC Tulsa. Their last meeting with Austin was a 2-2 draw. So there's a lot of opportunity there, but I think you hit the nail on the head. Like when an opportunity rise, it's pivotal of how you present yourself in that situation. So I think we're going to see a lot with FC Tulsa here and maybe get a lot of answers coming out of week 11 with what they put on the pitch. But elsewhere on Saturday, how lucky are we getting another Lipa FC this quickly? I mean, how did we get here? Indy's still looking for that first win against Louisville, though. So I think this weekend will obviously be something that Indy's looking at as a big opportunity for them to get that rivalry win and get it at home too.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like, again, just a couple weeks ago, you were asking me if I thought Louisville had a shot at the one spot in Group E, and I was like, no, I don't know if they can quite get there. Well, beating Indy and getting an important point against St. Louis is certainly a good starting point, right? If Louisville goes up to Indy and does something on Saturday night in this Lipa FC, pole position, you're right back there. Although, news for Louisville, which I'm sure is not news, it is no longer August. So if the luck that was running in August runs out in September, then you're right back where you started, just looking to find a way into the postseason.
It's no longer Leo season.
It is no longer Leo season. I don't know what season we're in right now, but I do know it's not Leo season.
I have no idea, but obviously some big questions for them. I do want to give you an opportunity here, Scott, because I put you on the spot last week and I asked you point blank if you thought that Louisville City was going to be able to be that number one spot in their group. You were very matter of fact. You thought that they would get that win over St. Louis and get a point out of their weekend meeting, which they did. So I just want to throw you a little kudos your way because that was well done. Possibly a good guess. Either way, I'm gonna give you the big W.
Thank you. I will gladly take it. I think at risk of, I'm not going to make a prediction for Saturday night necessarily, but I will say that Indy hasn't played since they lost to Louisville. So there's certainly no question who the more fresh of the two sides is It's more of does Indy have it in them to turn the tide from 10 days ago, when Louisville has obviously been able to keep themselves a little bit more consistent in terms of action on the field. So huge Saturday night all across the league for sure.
Of course, one more I just want to touch on quickly is El Paso, New Mexico. Obviously, you love anytime you see these two meet, and they just so happen to both be in the top two in Group C right now. So it also both in fantastic form, both seeing very good August. So that's a huge one, I think, on Saturday night that we need to look ahead to.
Yeah, Group B is like not Group B. Group C, is as competitive as ever. And I think obviously with those two being front runners, I think New Mexico is still the closest to securing a playoff position.
They are. Yep.
Yeah,
yep.
So that's huge for them. But I think El Paso still has an opportunity, like somehow, even though they've done really well so far this season, I still feel like they're just kind of, I don't know if it's just an underserving of expectation or if they're flying under the radar, but they still feel like, to me, they aren't getting the buzz that maybe they need to, and maybe that's how they like it. But Saturday night's going to be a really good test.
I agree. A lot coming ahead here in Week 11. It's going to be a fun one, and this next month is only going to get more fun as we get closer to that playoff picture. Before we close out today, though, Matt Calvo, you know it's your time, man. What do you got for us?
I'm to thrive, Matt.
I don't know if it's my time. It's really our time.
It's our time.
Here, I'm here, and you're here. It's our time. I'm going to start with a little bit of sad note, but it'll see why. Of course, this week, past week, we lost Chadwick Boseman, surprisingly, stunningly, very tragic story. But like the positive to come out of that was just all the great messages about him, and you talked about your social media moments and things like that, and just hearing people that had the fortune to work with him, to speak about how great he was and the impact he had, and the impact that his films have had on people, and so that was like the positive to take out of the tragedy. But it got me thinking, and I know, Kelsey, over the quarantine time, you finally got the opportunity to dive into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for which I'm very proud of you. For finally jumping in and enjoying the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So in honor of all of that, I wanted to taking Black Panther out because it's still too raw and a little emotional. Who is your favorite of the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Which character is your favorite?
Easy for both of us. That's good.
Again, taking Black Panther out just for the sake of today, given the events of this past week. Who is your favorite Marvel character? And I'm saying Marvel character because it could be one of the villains. It could be one of the lesser known side characters, whatever. So the option is yours on that.
Okay.
I just want to say quickly that we didn't know how long quarantine was going to last. Honestly, we thought it was going to be like a few weeks. Definitely didn't think we'd still be here in September. So when I say that I got through these, I'm talking about a 2.5 week time period of killing all of the Marvel movies. There might be like just like one or two that I didn't see all of, but like we went hard like quickly. So when we came out of that, like 2.5, 3 weeks out of it, and like here it got to be like July, I was kind of like, man, I wish we wouldn't have done that. so we went full in, but I'm so appreciative and I love this question. So Scott, you won last week, right?
Yeah. Scott wins, so he gets right of first refusal.
I want to hear Kelsey's first, considering that it's been, just a jam-packed run of Marvel movies. So I'm interested. I'll let her go.
I have a prop that I want to have, but it's downstairs, so I don't know if I'm allowed like a tab break to run down and get it.
Well, you could have had Scott gone first, but Scott's deferring to you, so you're gonna go first.
No competitive advantage here. I gotta like keep it steady.
Okay. All right. No question.
All right. Ready?
Right.
Go.
Without question, the best character is Groot in the entire series. I think that Groot provides a level of humor that you need in like any high intense moment. His intro for Guardians of the Galaxy 2 took 2 years to make. That's how important this character is to the series, that they did all of this around this one character. And I have also never been so upset to see a fictional character, a tree, die, you guys. That is how much of an impact that this character can have on you in bringing happiness. Oh man, I could go on forever. I love him. So I wanted to go down and bring up because I was gifted a Groot planner for my birthday. So I currently have a little succulent in Groot growing downstairs. I told you, I was like, I had a lot to say.
You have your own Groot. That's epic. Coming from someone who, like, 5 months ago had never seen any of the movies, and now you have your own Groot.
And I honestly would have gone my entire life without seeing them. Like, was totally complacent not doing that. And now it's like every now and then I just want to turn on Guardians of the Galaxy because it just like every time I laugh at something new.
It's a fantastic movie. It's a good answer.
It is. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate
All right,
that.
Scott Stewart, your turn.
Matt, I want to clarify though. This is favorite character, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Easy.
All right. When you're ready.
Okay. For me, I'm a huge Iron Man guy.
I knew he was going to say that.
Iron Man was the introduction of the series. I just watched the first Avengers on Saturday night. I was told that I had a little bit of a Tony Stark type vibe, which I didn't know whether that was good or bad. But when I say I bawled after Endgame, and I'm not going to give any spoilers, but when I say I bawled after Endgame, I mean I bawled. Like 2-3 boxes of Kleenex needed to like soak up the amount of tears. Tony Stark is the man. Iron Man is my favorite character in general.
I honestly like that would have been my next one. I would have chosen
Iron Man.
Tony Stark is such a like complex character, and he has so many layers to him. Like he just got better with every movie, and because like obviously like my boyfriend's like super into this. He told me that final movie, either the last Avengers one, he took like a massive pay cut just to be able to make the movie, and he actually ended up like profiting a ton off of it. But yeah, I think he only took like a fourth of what like he was supposed to get because he was like so passionate about the series. Which
like favorite actor in the series for me is still Mark Ruffalo, Bruce Banner. So yeah. I don't even know if Robert Downey Jr. is my favorite actor, but Iron Man is hands down my favorite character.
God, Matt, why would you do this to us? That is a great question.
Great question.
Because it's a great question, and because you finally watched the series, and in honor of Mr. Boseman, rest in peace. I mean, side note, like not many superhero comic book movies have been nominated for Best Picture over the years. Like, I think that was the first one. So props for that, and with good reason.
Yeah.
So in honor of all that, but. There was no wrong answer. Like they're all just great characters. I was thinking about what my answer would be. I was kind of leaning a little bit toward the Mark Ruffalo Hulk. I did not like necessarily previous Hulks, but to your point, Scott, Mark Ruffalo did a ton with the Hulk.
Yeah.
And I think my favorite movie in this series is Ragnarok with Hulk and Thor together, and just what Taika Waititi did with that movie, I thought was just great. Like I'm a big Taika Waititi fan. Anyway, all that to say, I'm gonna have to go with Kelsey.
Wow.
Yes.
And Groot, because, and I'll tell you a very specific reason why. Because Groot is all the things you said: comedy, action, everything rolled together. But what really is amazing to me is that possibly the most human of all the Avengers is the tree.
Yep.
Wow.
I am Groot.
That's deep right there.
He probably displays the most humanity of all of the Avengers consistently through every time he makes an appearance, and he's a tree. And there's a lot to be said about that.
He is the GOAT. I love that guy. Adolescent Groot playing the PlayStation, the best.
Yeah, that bit where he's like sasses them, and all he says is, of course, I am Groot, because that's all he says. And they all go like, "Hey, watch your mouth!" like that. Just brilliant.
Well, if anybody who made it this far is still listening, I have to. And you guys have not watched any of the Marvel movies. We obviously have quite a bit more time here and work from home. So take your weekends and watch it, because I'm telling you right now, you will not regret it, and it will, as like least dramatic as I can put it, change your life.
One small consolation, just while we're here, since we're on the topic of if anybody's made it this far, the only other person I would have considered outside of Captain America is Black Widow. And I think Black Widow's storyline is incredible, and I'm excited for what's to come still as the Marvel movies still somehow continue to be made throughout the
Still.
Great point.
Love her. Scarlett Johansson is fantastic.
Yeah, she kills it.
Scarlett, like everything she does, she kills it. Great note to end on. Matt, probably like one of my favorite questions you've ever asked. So thank you for bringing that to the table. Week 11 starts Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern, and then we're full throttle from there. So ESPN Plus, you can catch them all this week, as well as 3 Sirius XM games as well. You guys, it's going to be a good one. For Kelsey Steele, Scott Stewart, Matt Calvo, thanks for tuning in.